And the testimonies of Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh were watched around the world and became a global trend on Twitter. Well, Angela in the Cube has been following that. It's going to update us.
That's right. People of all ages in all places watch the testimonies, as captured by this picture here by one journalist who tweeted this picture of a couple listening to it on their phones on a train in New York. Well, a very strong response to this. And as we said, they're becoming a global trend. Now, many in Dr. Ford's corner, others in strongly supporting Judge Kavanaugh. But Michael Avanti, who is an attorney, he tweeted saying that he'd witnessed over 500 witness accounts. And he said that in his career, and he said there's no question that Dr. Ford is credible. Another, Alyssa Milano, the actress, she was a strong voice in the Me Too movement. She was tweeting throughout the hearing, and she was very keen to remind people that Dr. Ford was not on trial. This was a job interview for Judge Kavanaugh. She's saying many people forgetting that, and many people agreeing with her. And back here in Europe as well, back to Europe, Jane Merrick, who's a journalist, she related it to her experience where she had to make complaints against British cabinet ministers. And she said in her tweet that this is terrifying, very much, praising Dr. Ford for her testimony, saying it must have been magnetised 1,000 times for her, she describes there on Twitter. But of course, supporters of Judge Kavanaugh, including, of course, Donald Trump, the US president, he said that his testimony showed America exactly why he nominated him. And lots of conservative women's groups also supporting Brett Kavanaugh, IWF and IWV, also saying that it was an unfair assassination of Brett Kavanaugh's character. But of course, many disagreeing this. It's very controversial. Lots of people completely divided, but very strong support for Dr. Ford. But Mark Young went as far as saying that he thought Judge Kavanaugh's testimony, he said he's more emotionally affected than Dr. Ford. Of course, lots of people responding to that. But Shannon Watts was keen to talk about something else, which many people also highlighted on social media, which was the scene of this, and Dr. Ford giving evidence to this. 11 men, this was the scene, 11 men sitting in judgment, she describes on Twitter. And she's saying we must vote as many women into office as possible in November. Lots of people replying to that thread as well. So lots of pockets of controversy over lots of different issues here. But of course, this, a global trend, really demonstrating, how far-reaching this story was and how many people were affected by it.
How keen are both sides to build bridges and try and reset relations?
Well, Isabel, it was only a year ago when Erdogan was branding the leaders of Germany's government Nazis, and Berlin was threatening Ankara with sanctions for keeping German, Turkish journalists incarcerated. So there are a lot of repairs that need to be done to this very frayed relationship, but they do have important diplomatic ties, and I think the will is there on both sides. Because Erdogan is coming to Berlin in Turkey's in such dire financial straits, and he will be appealing for help, there is a sense that he's slightly on the back foot in this meeting, and he is on German turf. So there's a lot of pressure on Angela Merkel and the German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier to use this opportunity to really push home the need for Erdogan to improve human rights relations, and also stop oppressing the opposition in Turkey, improve democracy and improve press freedom. This is something that a lot of human rights groups are calling on the German government to do. But Erdogan does have an important card to play. He is the key in maintaining, he's really the gatekeeper of this important migrant deal that Merkel had struck with Erdogan in order to keep migrants from coming into Europe. It's a $1 billion deal, and it's something that Angela Merkel cannot afford to have called into jeopardy, given that migration is such a contentious issue here in Germany at the moment. So he does have that where he can sort of put a bit of pressure on the German Chancellor. So it is there's a necessity there on both sides. They need this relationship to work. And also there's an important reason why the two are linked, because of the over 3 million Turks who live in Germany. 2/3 of them support Erdogan. And there are concerns in Germany just how much influence Erdogan has over this Turkish-German population, especially through the DİTİB mosque organization, which he has a lot of influence over and which has a lot of influence over the Turkish-German community. There's been allegations against this mosque of anti-Semitism and radicalization in certain parts of Germany. So that's a certain concern, and this is something that Angela Merkel is expected to discuss with Erdogan during his visit here in Berlin.
Now, Brian, this has been going on for a while. Can you give us the latest of what's going on there?
Yeah, hello, Isabel. I'm at the Brussels airport. As you can see behind me, there are a few workers from Ryanair who are gathered here. They're giving out flyers to some of the passengers to tell them about what it's like to work at Ryanair. There are about 250 flights canceled across Europe, as you said, in Belgium, Italy, Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, and Germany. As in the previous strikes that happened over the last few months, it's a dispute between workers and management over pay and working conditions. The main issue is the fact that most of the Ryanair workers are employed under Irish contract, which is less beneficial to workers. And so the main demands of the workers is to be employed under local contracts where they work and live. And this is also a demand that's been asked by the European Commission to Ryanair. Ryanair has engaged in collective bargaining with some of the unions in some countries, but the workers say that it's not enough and that it's not fast enough. To tell us more about these working conditions at Ryanair, I'm joined now by Sarkis Simonian. He's a former cabin crew member at Ryanair. Sarkis, thanks for being with us today on the show. Can you please explain to us what it's like to be a cabin crew member at Ryanair?
To work as a cabin crew with Ryanair, you start already with the training, which is very hard. It takes like 8 weeks to be good performing in the status of a cabin crew. In the beginning, it's very nice, I can say, like every type of company. But then after, when you realize what is the real conditions, then you get disappointed, and this is the result what you can see today.
What are these conditions? How much do you get paid? How many hours do you work? What are the main conditions?
If I take an example, you can work like, for example, a month for 200 hours, but you will get paid just 90 hours because they are just paying you the flight times and not the duty time, which means that you're working very hard and then you just get paid only when the flight go on, and the delays and cancellations you are not paid.
Sarkis, you were recently fired from by Ryanair. They say that you actually performed poorly and that you had some unjustified sick leave, but you say that you were fired for a different reason, right?
Of course, it's a pure defamation what Mr. O'Leary said, which means that all my sicknesses has been certified. And beside that, my performance was excellent because I have the proofs of that, which will be presented as well at the court. So all the lies and all the story that he's telling every time when he's giving an interview, now the people will see the real situation and the real statistics of working with Ryanair, actually.
Thank you, Sarkis. So as you see, Isabel, the labor dispute between workers and management is still going on. Mr. O'Leary, the CEO of Ryanair, has recently threatened the workers here in Belgium, saying that if the strikes continue, that he could diminish operations in Belgium, which would cut jobs. But the workers that we managed to speak to here in Brussels say that they will continue fighting for better pay and better working conditions.